So we're back with episode 6, and as always, this is my gripes and opinions on the episode, not a full breakdown or a review. Others do that a whole lot better than me, and as always, spoilers ahead. This episode, forgive my voice, I am currently congested with some sinusy thing, so we'll try and bear with as much as we can. We pick up with pre-war Barb. We see Vault-Tec trying to set up their little experiments with reference to failing water chips at a 30% rate. We have House and Hank in a meeting. The mind control chip comes into play, with House apparently having access to vaults to run experiments as he so pleases. House wants the cold fusion device again, yet in the previous episode we see him with a cold fusion device, so this is I don't even know at this stage. Anyway, it's juxtaposed the House saying that they will find out what his experiments are after the bombs drop. There is some elements and attempts to humanize Barb, and I don't even know where this is in the timeline, but at this stage they're hinting at this being before the meeting in season 1, but I don't know. Anyway, back in Freeside we have the Ghoul, still impaled, reaching for his stash of anti-feral meds. The Freesiders are just, milling about, and no one's stopping to help because everything has to be reduced for comedic effect. Dog meat doesn't help much, but I suppose they are a dog, so yeah, okay. And there are a few feral snaps from the Ghoul. Again, if somebody's seen that happening within Freeside, is nobody not going to put an end to it? I remember in my playthrough of Fallout New Vegas, anybody in Freeside was willing to take me out for just a few caps. Anyway, we cut to Coop on the bed, speaking with Barb, re the last episode's events, and they start to discuss it, but it just seems that the snappy jump cut edits are back again this episode, as we are now with Lucy in a bed in a nice Vault-Tec HQ. So Lucy tries to escape and she comes into contact with Legion members along with a few more mind-controlled personnel. We see that the mind chips that Hank has been working on are now a production line and seem to be working 100%. She finds a simulation room where it's back to the original Vault that she used to grow up in. Hank and her talk about All Quiet on the Western Front. Hank talks about the philosophy and Lucy takes him hostage, or arrests him, and Hank just goes along with it, handcuffing himself in the process. Maximus and Thaddeus haven't made it far from the smoking, fighting Brotherhood camp, it seems, and Thaddeus mentions he was born in the Boneyard. They discuss good people and what it means to be good, but we'll just jump to the Ghoul, who eventually manages to start pulling himself up and off the spike, only to slide back down again. I don't know about you, but I certainly would have bled and died out by this stage, but it's strange that he hasn't bled out and died, so it really is beyond me the livelihood of people in this show at this stage. This also really messes with the feralness of ghouls and how actual ghouls become feral from the known lore of which we have access to at this stage. He is then rescued by a cloaked figure, which started to build a wee bit of intrigue. Interesting that he can just walk through Freeside unaccosted in his interesting garb, but I do digress. But before the intrigue is fully explored, we cut to the Vault Dwellers. And what the hell is this? An eating and dance troupe? I'm done with this at this point. Betty and her security guards bust in and put a stop to it. I think this might have been the only good thing that she's achieved this season. Again, why do they keep pushing the inbreeding angle? The vaults were sort of designed to eradicate inbreeding unless it was an experiment that they wanted to run. But anyway, they patently squabble about food and rations and how it's just going to come back and bite them in the ass at some stage. Chet finds out he's having his wedding tomorrow as well, but good luck to him. Back to the Ghoul and his would-be saviour. He hints with uranium heal-up, with mention of a war coming. Now, the uranium and exposure to radiation, I could understand that turning the Ghoul a bit more feral, but again, I digress. The people who set this all up in motion are now clearly the Enclave, or so it is heavily suggested at, and we get our first glimpse of Ron Pearlman as the super mutant, so I guess this is where he was during Fallout 4. Anyway, they have some cryptic murmurs and he whacks the Ghoul in the head. and sends him back because the Ghoul's not ready to join his magical little clan of super mutants and ghouls. Goodness, I'm sure that's not going to be used for political point scoring later on. Cut to the pre-war arguments between Barb and Coop. They seem to have multiplied, of who could possibly be worse. We see a young Betty and they focus on the cold fusion again. We also see the Enclave guy from season 1 who has clearly survived the war by season 1. At this stage, is everybody just in a cryopod sleeping it off? Because it doesn't impress me anymore. And beforehand it was interesting to see that play out, but now it's just, oh yeah, he was alive before the war. He must have got himself an icebox too. I really am not much of a fan about how all these people have been around before the war. It makes sense for one or two characters, and it's quite impressive that they've survived the war in some capacity, but when everybody starts doing it, it just wastes its potential. It just seems weird, especially with those who are working against it, such as Moldaver also being clearly frozen from pre-war times to actual post-war times as well. Lucy brings her father out, and Hank shows how his experiments are working to make bad people better, and propositions her with a pretty much, people are fighting over absolutely nothing now. How's about we fix it all and get them to be all neutral? I'm also now starting to wonder how Hank by himself has gotten all these people. One of the guys is the old NCR dude that we seen a couple of episodes ago. Now, the crack-headed peddler, I could understand him getting because he's the crack-headed peddler, but somebody with fighting prowess, such as the Legion members or an NCR ranger, it's just completely beat over the head and taken by Hank whenever they are either with somebody else. I just find it hard to believe. They fight and she pushes the button to neutralise their aggressive tendencies, and they're all now friendly and helpful. We can get another jump cut where we see the mutant transporting the Ghoul, but then it just jump cuts again to Coop bringing Hank and the briefcase back to his private room. Coop drugs him and then tries to steal the briefcase, which only contains an injector. Barb comes in and catches him in the act, and then she extracts the cold fusion device from Hank. Again, no setup to this, no explanation, no nothing, just consume the slop. Of course, Dogmeat finds Thaddeus and Maximus whilst they're having their little heart-to-heart moment round a campfire before leading them to the Mojave Mission School where they find the Ghoul and the episode ends. So, with 2 episodes left, we now have even more questions than answers. No one's plot motivations are revealed, and everybody's motivations are seemingly changing on the fly. This season is just a real mess when we boil it all down, and it just jumps all over the place, telling snippets here and there rather than one cohesive plot. Honestly, anyone defending this crap at this stage is just a tourist. Objectively, none of the storytelling is good, and now with the sights set on what we know it boils down to, an old J. Nolan ending with AI being behind everything again, if you wanted Westworld Season 5, well, here we are. I'll see you next week.